Welcome back. The panel is here, but not exactly here. NBC News White House correspondent Kristen Welker, former Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson, presidential historian Doris Kearns-Goodwin, author of the book Leadership in Turbulent Times, and David French. He's senior editor for The Dispatch and a columnist for Time magazine. As you've probably just noticed, we look a little different this morning. I'm the only one here in our Washington studio. All of our guests are in remote locations as we practice social distancing. We actually obviously hope you are doing the same. Jay Johnson, you're a former Secretary of Homeland Security. FEMA is under DHS. They are now playing point. The federal response, look, first it was CDC, then it was HHS, then it's the task force, now it's FEMA, where a lot of governors are happy. What did you hear from Mr. Gaynor that the public should focus on?
Well, Chuck, you asked him, do you have the ability to prevent hoarding? And I was a little concerned when the FEMA administrator hedged in his answer to that question. You cannot have a bidding war between one state and another over ventilators, the very medical device we use to cling to life. And so I hope the FEMA administrator has the authority he needs to prevent that and to actually enforce a proper allocation of medical supplies and resources. The role of the federal government in a crisis like this is to not answer the question about how long schools are going to be out. That is a question for state and local authorities to enforce social distancing. The role of the federal government in a national crisis like this is actually to be the shipping clerk. President says he's not a shipping clerk. He is the shipping clerk in chief through FEMA to make sure the states, cities have the resources they need to combat this virus right now.
Obviously part of the, David French, I want to get you to react to something that was in this morning's New York Times for some yesterday, if you caught it online, about the president himself. Mr. Trump's performance has put on display the traits that Democrats and some Republicans consider so jarring. The profound need for personal praise, the propensity to blame others, the lack of human empathy, the penchant for rewriting history, the disregard for expertise, the distortion of facts, the impatience with scrutiny or criticism. For years, skeptics expressed concern about how he would handle a genuine crisis threatening the nation, and now they know. Pretty harsh assessment, David.
Yeah, very harsh, and I think very deserved, especially early in this crisis. I mean, his misstatements about the threat were inexcusable. Testing delays were appalling. But a lot of us, I think, were rightly encouraged over the last few days that his tone has changed. Yep. You still have this pattern where people are praising him incessantly as they give these briefings, which is just absurd to watch. But the tone has changed. And at the end of the day, his response and his leadership is going to be judged by how all of this plays out. Right. It's a sad fact of American history that we often confront crises with early bungling and early bumbling. That's a pattern throughout American history. We're going to be judged ultimately in how we respond in the full course of this.
Kristen Welker, all the reporting I've heard inside the White House, and I know you had, there is a little bit of uncertainty at times because so many people are going directly to the president with their own ideas. I hear there are certain staffers in the White House that are sort of going around FEMA, around the task force, and that is creating even more confusion.
Well, Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, for one, Chuck, is among the people who's helping to lead this effort. And that has created confusion within the administration, within some of the top officials of the coronavirus task force. And the president is getting incoming not only from aides within his own White House, which you would expect, of course, but also outside allies. We know this is a president who likes to consult with his outside allies to stay in touch. And so everyone has an opinion about how he should be proceeding at this point. He's been in the briefing room daily, Chuck. He wants to look like he's out front, right, in charge. At times that has been effective, as you have pointed out, and at times it has created some mixed messaging when he's lashing out at reporters, for example, and when he's contradicting statements by his own top doctors about when the vaccine will be ready, for example, or when medications may be available for use. And so some of his outside allies are urging the White House to really assess this strategy of him coming out on a daily basis. Does he need to be there on a daily basis? And if he is, he needs to stay on message, they say, Chuck.
Doris, leadership in turbulent times. I would say we're in turbulent times.
I would say so, too. And I think the most important thing in these kind of times is you have to trust the word of the president and you have to believe in the actions that they're taking. There was early bungling in response to the Depression by the Hoover administration. They relied on voluntary action, on state and local action. They didn't believe the federal government should be in charge of everything. And so his words lost their credibility. He said, prosperity will never be helped by raiding the public treasury. FDR comes in, changes the situation entirely. His inaugural address not only says we shouldn't worry about fear itself, it says this is preeminently a time to tell the truth. Only a foolish optimist would not admit the dire circumstance. But then he says, I am prepared for action and action now. And he says, if Congress doesn't give me what I want, I need broad executive power. We are at a war. You voted for me, and I take this responsibility. So, and then things started happening. The banking crisis got help. The 100 days comes in. So why that Defense Production Act is not being used right now, as others have said, so that we can mobilize a coordinated response to this, why the Army's not being mobilized now. The bungling's already happened. We have to get to that next stage of systematic action.
Jay, explain how the Army would be mobilized if you were there right now.
Well, you have active duty military, you've got the reserves, you've got the Guard. First and foremost, I'd be making use of the Army Corps of Engineers and the various states' National Guard. I don't know that I would federalize the National Guard and put it under national control. I would put them very clearly in what we refer to as Title 32 status, where they remained under the control of the governors, but the federal government is helping to pay for it. In terms of social distancing and doing the things on the ground that we need to get the public to do, I continue to believe that is a state and local function, and the Guard can help bring that about.
David French, civil liberties are not being focused on right now, and in moments like this, they usually do take a back seat in a national emergency, but there is a fine line here. What concerns do you have?
Well, I don't think there's a fine line right now. This is a situation where the states are at their maximum power. Notice I said the states. Under our constitutional structure, the states have the police power to deal with public health crises. And so in this circumstance, they are operating at the apex of their power in much the same way a president would operate at the apex of his power in a national security or wartime situation. However, what you need to understand is that states, once they grab authority, often don't like to let it go. So as this crisis, as this crisis, God willing, eases over time, there's going to be some real civil liberties concerns as to when is it going to be the right time for these states to sort of take their foot off the gas.
Right.
But for right now, there's a compelling governmental interest in acting decisively. Social distancing, enforcing social distancing, even though it's a temporary infringement on civil liberties, is squarely within the public health authority of our state governments and has been since the founding of our country.
Well put there, Mr. French. All right, guys, this awkward. I'm sorry that we don't have our normal interactive conversation, but we're going to pause it now. We're going to come back in a little bit. Hello from Washington. I'm Chuck Todd, and thanks for checking out the Meet the Press channel on YouTube. Click on the button down here to subscribe and click over here to watch the latest interviews, highlights, and other digital exclusives.